Start recording. Awesome. Oh, hey, Annabelle. Oh, San Francisco.
Yay.
Okay, cool. Yay. Sorry, I could do this all morning. It's great. Okay, cool. Amazing. Everyone, welcome to the final day of Liminal. I really hope you've had a blast this week. I certainly have. The energy's been just so awesome. So I'm Sophia. I head up the fellowship at StartMate. Together with Blackbird, we have put Liminal together for you to just give you a bit of a snapshot into what a career in startups does look like, and also hopefully give you a bit of an insight into how to actually get there. Because I think for many, there seems like there is no clear path. So we want to inspire you this week to, if you're thinking about a change, showcase people that have done it. The fun does not have to stop here. If you have been inspired this week and actually do want to make a change, come and do the fellowship. It's a 2-month program that, like, the goal is for you to land your dream job in a startup, and we do that by more sessions like this. You're coached by startup leaders, and we help you to really fast track your network and your knowledge in the space, and help you to actually land that dream job. So if you do one thing today, I have a task. So either you spend 10 minutes applying here, put it there, or forward it to one person that you know is feeling unfulfilled in their career. They feel a bit stuck. This is their first point of call. So either apply or send it to someone you know, and sending all the love. Okay, cool. Also, we're running a session at 12 today if you want to come and ask questions. Nothing is off limits. Okay, a couple of quick housekeeping bits before we move on to Michelle. So the session is going to be recorded, available afterwards on the replay on the Liminal site. If you do have questions, please put them in Slido, which I'm going to pop here for you right now. And we'll take them from there. Again, loving all the tweets and LinkedIn posts coming in. Love the feedback. Love the spreading of the love. Please do send us a message. And afterwards we have breakfast club, so I'll put the link for it at the end. Come and have a 30-minute networking session where you can see way more people on the screen than just our two faces, and actually come and meet and chat with people. So super excited to have Michelle here on the last day. She's an operating partner at Costanoa Ventures, who've actually invested in a couple of Australian companies, including Propeller and Scheduler. Michelle works closely with the portfolio companies on all things talent and people strategy. Before Costanoa, she was a talent partner at Cowboy Ventures. And before that, she spent over a decade recruiting and leading talent teams for all of the top tech companies. So Google, Yahoo, Amazon, Adobe. So she's seen it all. So Michelle, so many amazing experiences. Just can't wait to hear your tips and advice on how to break into startups, particularly if a startup doesn't feature on your resume. So yeah, gonna hand over to you, and yeah.
Great, thank you, Sophia. So I'm gonna share my screen. As I mentioned to her earlier, I'm probably the most technically challenged, so everybody bear with me. And let me know if it comes up there. Okay, well, Sophia gave me a graceful introduction here. Again, my name is Michelle McHargue. I am very excited to be here. As she said, I'm with Costanoa Ventures. We are an early stage venture fund based out here in the San Francisco Bay Area. We invest primarily in enterprise companies in the seed and Series A stage. And she gave you a little background on me. I decided to put something really fun really quickly. I have my dogs, because you're probably seeing me on the little square over there. These are my 2 dogs who I love, and just based off the picture, I think the feeling is not mutual of how much they love me, because I torture them by dressing them up. So really quickly, I did just want to share, I did not start my career up in startups. I started at Google at the time. And back then in the early 2000s, I started when we were about 2,000 people. And back then that was considered a startup. I was one of 3 recruiters for Sheryl Sandberg in the advertising operations team, and it was fun. It was cuckoo for Cocoa Pops, but I learned so much, which started my obsession with the startup landscape. So I hope you guys find this presentation really helpful in your journey.
Michelle, yep. Do you want to, because the display, because we can see like your notes in the next slide.
Oh, let's see.
I think maybe swap displays, or
Let's see. Does that
Oh, there we go.
work?
Perfect. Can you good there?
I do. I can see everything good. Let me just save everything. Okay. So actually I wanted to go back to sorry guys. So here is the agenda, but I do want to just kind of call out before we move. You can see what we're going to talk about. I just want to say, and I know we have time set up for the very end. If you do have any questions that are yearning and burning and you want to ask on a specific slide, please feel free to go ahead and just ask, and you can drop it on the chats, and I'm sure Sophia will go ahead and let me know. So a couple of things I'd like to go through today is as you're trying to think through breaking into startups, I want to help as best as I can to set you up for success. And that could be coming out from the big corporate world, pivoting into a different kind of role, or just coming back into the workforce. So we're going to go over a few things today, and that's going to be finding a place where you'll surround yourself with advocates. I think that is really important. As well as nailing the interview. So how do you prepare for that? And then we'll move over to setting yourself up for success and crafting your career. You do really own that journey. So we'll get started. Okay, but before we go into what startups are looking for, because I think that is the big question for the day, I do want to ask the question of everybody is more along the lines of what are you looking for in a startup? I think there's this allure for startups to be this shiny ball object, and just like anything, everything is not perfect. So some of the things, and I know Sophia gave you homework earlier today at the beginning of this call, is I give you homework. It's more along thinking about what it is that you want in a startup, right? And it's probably asking the questions of what gives you energy. And that could be along the lines of, you love drinking out of the fire hose, you love the change, you love the fast pace, which is all great attributes for joining a startup. And then there's the opposite, what drains you, which would be all the opposite things that I just mentioned. Are you not okay with ambiguity? Is being too flexible not okay? And if you can't answer the questions of what energizes you, startups may not be the right place, but it also gives you an idea of probably a good starting point to kind of think through what company would be the most ideal that would fit your background. And like I mentioned, Google was 2,000 people at the time, and maybe that is a better starting point for you. So with all that, what are these startups looking for? So I've worked with many founders and hiring managers in my career, and for many of them, they're looking for someone who's going to hit the ground running. And in some cases, you have never seen that type of flooring in your life. So just having a background of being flexible, in just understanding what you do today in terms of your role, if you're in a current position, how does that translate into the role that you want to get into? So just having your narrative be prepared as you start to look at companies. I suffer from this. How do you overcome the fear and self-doubt? It is really scary when you're thinking about changing. I think, it's easy to be, feel safe when things are comfortable. And when you do the opposite, of course, it's really scary. So all I can say is don't hesitate, take the leap of faith and just do it. I have not regretted all the choices I've made. And I've had a lot of squiggly lines up until now. And I'm sure I'll continue to have those. Okay, so find a place where you'll surround yourself with advocates. I have been very fortunate to have found a lot of my mentors and advocates along the way through where I've worked. And in some cases, it may not fall into that shape or form of finding somebody at work. It could be a friend, it could be a teacher, it could be your neighbor, but you're gaining experiences and helpful tidbits from everybody. These will be mentors, advisors, and just sounding boards for you professionally and personally just throughout your journey. So I think for today, I hope you take away as you kind of collect your thoughts and how you start to look for new opportunities or where you want to go, is that you could think about, who those advocates and mentors are for you. And so that you can find a place that's going to be a safe and fun environment in terms of a place where you'd like to work at. All right, so now you're going to want to look for your job. You're probably going to hear me say research just throughout this whole presentation, because just looking for roles, there's a lot of that involved. There are so many companies that are out there. So I think it's really important to make sure that you are doing your research. Are you, looking for things that are in industry and sector and everything I've listed out here, and I won't name it all, but I just think thinking through what is important to you. Is it a company that's in sustainability? Is it a company that has an array of benefits? Is it a business to business, which is Zoom, which we're on today? Or is it a business to consumer company like Snapchat that really gets you excited? And just one bullet point I wanted to point out is company size and stage. And again, as you think through what kind of companies you're interested in, there's just a variety of stages and sizes, and honestly where they're at in their stage that would be complementary to what you're looking for. So it doesn't need to be a startup in a garage. Researching the company. So, some advice I like to give to people who are looking for jobs is really cast the net really wide. So I would say look at a little bit over a dozen companies that kind of fit that criteria. And then based off of that, you start to shorten that to maybe a handful of 6 that really fit the things that you're looking for. Company culture. Are you looking for a diverse team? And I typically like to look at that from a leadership standpoint. It shows to me that they really are deliberate about how they're doing these things. And title is always important, but not always the priority. I think, as you start to look at different companies, you're going to want to make sure, A, you believe in the vision. It's what keeps you there and what keeps you motivated. Are you working with people who have great growth mindset, which is also very important. And I will note, if you do have somebody that is connected to somebody at a company that you're interested in, warm intro is always nice, but if you don't have it, it's okay. Don't be discouraged. Just go the regular way of applying, but it's sometimes helpful. It's a bonus. And places to look for these jobs. Again, these are probably usual suspects that you guys are all aware of. The one I will note on here is the VC's portfolio career pages. For us at Costanoa, we typically have all of our companies listed on our page. We have a section for it. So you'll get to see all the different openings we have throughout our portfolio. So if you guys are aware, like Blackbird, take a look at their pages. You guys will probably see some amazing opportunities listed there. Okay, here's the fun part and also the most annoying part. When you look for a job, you got to take this time to update your resume in LinkedIn. I will say, people tend to look at LinkedIn more than they are looking at resumes, but you still want to make sure you're paying attention to both and updating both of them, but probably taking a little more time on the LinkedIn, which my advice would be is to put 3 to 5 bullets of meaty information in your LinkedIn profile. And if you could add anything that shows responsibilities and how you were involved in those responsibilities, such as metrics, which is always important. If you are a project manager, you were involved with Y and the results are X, I think those are really helpful to showcase on your profile. Oh, and I will note, also provide references. In the next slide, I'm going to show you an example of someone's LinkedIn profile that has recommendations, which I think is pretty key. So you'll see here on the right-hand side, this particular profile has recommendations listed. This is probably a good mix of coworkers and a manager, and it just showcases some of the great things that this particular person was working on. So it just gives another snapshot into your background that people would not necessarily see on, say, a resume or LinkedIn profile if this was empty. And then on the left-hand side, I wanted to also note, typically, when people look at profiles, you want to see progression in title. Yes, that's important. It's important for someone like myself who looks at it, but I also like to dig a little bit deeper and take a look at just how this person has progressed through her career, going through different organizations and changing business units. So you'll just see her evolution through her career, which I think is great. And I'll go through quickly about a job description. So as you are looking to revamp your LinkedIn and your resume, I will say it's great to try to mirror and complement some of the things that you are doing today, even though it is not exactly what it is. So for this one, this is a Costanoa company, parallel domain. This is a product marketing role. You could be in a program role. You could be in a project management role, but the things that you do in terms of under this qualification is you have worked with a lot of different people cross-functionally. Try to highlight some of the things that you do today that pick up some of the things from this job description and then implement them into your resume and LinkedIn. So it just ties everything together. Okay, so you've done all this work and now you have to nail the interview, which is also the fun part and daunting part of getting all this all together. Preparation is going to be key, especially if you're coming from an industry that's not where this role is particularly in or function. It's going to be really important that you prepare for this interview. If you can, try to get the panel interview list ahead of time if there's a coordinator who's going to provide that or a hiring manager. This just allows you to see who you're talking to, so you can prepare questions for them. I would also encourage you to take a look at the different announcements and blogs and media things that just came up. Again, you want to be able to take who you're talking to, what they're doing today in terms of press releases, and implementing them into potential questions you have for them. You are evaluating companies as much as they are evaluating you. So just prepare for to have some of those questions ready. And I wanted to note on the practice common interview questions, I'm sure as you start to go into the interviewing circuit, there are going to be a lot of frequently asked questions that you will probably get from the hiring managers. So I would try to practice some of the questions you feel that come up often. And it could be around your strengths, it could be your improvements, and then also coming up with just some key things that you're doing today that you want to give examples to showcase, again, your superpowers basically to the interview panel. I will note one thing here too, again, is one question that stumps people is, what interests you about the role and why would you be a good candidate? I've heard a lot of different examples of this answer, and saying it's a cool company and I'm detail oriented is great, but you really are going to want to dig a little bit deeper into why this company compelled you and even why you're even talking to them. You made it that far. So try to really showcase and highlight yourselves besides very basic answers. Okay. Nailing the virtual interview. We are in this virtual world, I think, forever. Sophia and I talked about this a little earlier today. I think this is going to be a new world order for a very long time, unfortunately. So you're going to want to nail this virtual interview process. And I gave some examples of just what this looks like. I have a ring. You probably see there's a circle behind me. I typically don't have it on, but today I wanted to represent what good lighting looks like, because I typically probably look like this unbalanced lighting example from Zoom. But good lighting is going to be important when you are interviewing. You're going to want to make sure you are focused on your tone, paying attention, eye contact. I know it's really weird to look at the laptop camera whole thing throughout the whole process, but you want to mimic how you would be in a conference room talking to the interview panel. Okay, setting yourself up for success in crafting your career. So being proactive starts the minute you accept that offer. And I think, we are our destiny driver in terms of what we're doing. And again, there's a lot of loop-de-loops in terms of our career and how you do it, but you really do own what happens with the help, obviously, of your hiring manager. So what I would say is, when you do work at a startup, there are just so many different opportunities to be involved with a lot of projects. Those are the things, again, as you kind of think through earlier, I mentioned about what gets you excited, and being excited is doing a lot of different things. I think this is what is going to be great for your career, just given just the many things that expose you to different opportunities within a company. And then take control of your career. I think with hiring managers, you want to make sure you are setting up your one-on-ones, take notes. Also encourage your manager, if you're not doing that today, to have written expectations out. You want to know what you're striving for. So you want to hit your milestones. And if you don't write them out, it's really, really hard to remember because the day is always chaotic. So when you leave that meeting, sometimes you're like, what was it that we talked about again? And writing these down are really, really important. Again, at the end of the quarter to the end of the year, you just can go back and take a look at all the things that you've worked on. So it makes that end of the year review with your manager a lot more easier. And then you can sit back and kind of think, whoa, I did do a lot. So write them down is really, really important. And then seek mentorship outside of your team and get involved with others. So again, given COVID, this has dampened a lot of networking opportunities with folks. Costanoa, we do a lot of events here, at least pre-COVID. And one of the events that we would do was host women dinners with certain functions that were very complementary. And that would be sales and marketing, product and engineering. And we would bring everybody together, very small, curated team, where they can crowdsource answers, tips and tricks, and then also network with one another and build a community, which I think is great. So I would encourage you, if you can, again, knowing that you can't be somewhere in a physical space, there are many groups that are trying to do a lot of these webinars and do these virtual happy hours to build this community about with one another. So try to find them. And if you can't find them, reach out to me. I'll help you look for them. And this is my team. So over the decade, on the left is my team from Yahoo. And then on the side here is my team today at Costanoa. I have been so fortunate to have found my tribe, honestly. And so I think, you know, again, as you think through your journey, you have your tribe with you, and you just have to think about those superpowers that everybody has. And I think as you think through mentors and advisors, my one piece of advice I have there is, you know, set up time with he or she and make sure you have goals for those meetings. Everyone is super busy. You can save the niceties for later, but really utilize that time for constructive feedback, constructive tips and tricks. So for each of those folks that are your mentor or advisor, you're using the time efficiently to just make sure that you get the most out of it. And lastly, I won't read this because this is really special and true and near and dear to my heart. I think what you guys are doing is really amazing, Sophia. I think this is great, and I was so excited to be a part of this. I think through everybody's journey, you know, as big or small, make sure you give back to the community. This is the only way we make this circle of females even more awesomer, if that's even a word. So just make sure, you may not feel that what you have to share is important, but it is to somebody else. So just make sure, share the knowledge that you have and just pay it forward. I think it's really important. So with that, gosh, I feel that was really fast. That's it.
Loved it. Loved it. So many practical tips. A couple of people are, well, the session has been recorded, but a couple of people are asking if you're happy to share the slides after, because there's just so much great content in there.
Okay.
That too. Okay, I'm going to try and whip through the questions because there's some really great ones coming through on Slido. So, how much do you focus on previous experience versus character traits and potential?
So I will speak from a hiring manager standpoint. For me, if you ask me, I always go for potential, right? Because I think when we look at the pool of talent, everybody always obviously wants the unicorn and has the, like I mentioned earlier in one of the slides, hit the ground running because they're coming with experience. So whatever role that you're in today, again, there are a lot of things that are very complementary to the thing that you're striving for, unless you're trying to be, and I'll give you just a wackadoodle example. So if you're somebody who's a painter and wants to be a software engineer, it's a little tough, right? Just because it's coding. But again, if you're a project manager trying to go into a product manager role, there's a lot of complementary things in there that can really tie it in and then showcase your character and abilities.
Awesome. Okay, cool. If coming from a big company, what size startup would you recommend?
You know, it's a shocker, you know, when you go into something really small. So if you were to come from a company, let's just even say 1,000 people, you know, a good transition into it is probably somewhere in the 200 to 300 stage, where some of these companies have product market fit. There's just more things that are established and foundational versus one that is really small, which some of our companies can be from 2 to 20, and you're just really still building a lot and you're the first person in. So from coming from big, I would transition to something that's a little bit more established, just so you have some footing around there. So around the 200-300 mark.
Awesome. Does it help to align your level of experience in the startup space with how established the startup company is?
In terms of just your experience?
I guess if you're, I don't know, I guess how do you translate, if you're thinking about, okay, I've maybe, and hopefully I'm interpreting this question right, I've kind of climbed up and I've reached like, I don't know, VP level, and then I'm looking at these startup jobs. Do I go for like C level? Do I go for head of level? Like, how do you align how experienced you are with how that then translates to
A startup?
like pools in startups, or like where you then come in?
Yeah, I would say it's probably still very similar and commensurate. So if you are coming from, say a big company and you are a VP, you may be coming in for a C-level job. And it really depends if your experience is tight. So again, I would say once you go into a C-level role, even if you're coming from a VP role, are you asking for something completely different, right? Or are they complementary? So again, I use product all the time because a lot of our companies hire for product people. So, are you a VP of product somewhere, but now you want to be a VP of engineering? And if you've never had that, we probably would still bring you in at a VP level and just have, development plans for you to take on those roles. So I think it's still a little similar in terms of the real world, of big organizations and how they scope them.
Okay. A quick one. Do you have an example of hiring someone who on paper didn't look right, but in reality were perfect?
Oh gosh, I think there's a lot of people will surprise you. Not one comes, I probably will say myself, I didn't start up, in recruiting. And I don't want to say it's because I was perfect for it, but again, complementary to how I went to the ranks. I started off as going to be a nurse. And then I transitioned into to recruiting, which and all in all became, someone took a chance on me and just put together, I was helping people. Instead of helping people probably, get stitches and doing EKGs, I was helping people find, the next most important thing besides staying alive was, finding their job and livelihood. So I think, again, I'm always for the underdog. And I think it's really important, when I mentioned it before, don't be scared to make the leap. We're the only ones that hold us back, but really take time to kind of think through like what it is that excites you and how you fit into those companies, and just adjust based on that.
Love that. And I think in that example you gave right there, it's like, what are at the very core, take titles away, what are you actually doing? What are you great at? And what gives you energy? And like, how then think deeply about how that translates.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's not apparent. So that's why you have to really prepare your narrative. I say it all the time. It's like maybe my favorite word, but just really having your narrative ready when you're going to talk to the hiring team, because you unfortunately have one shot sometimes. And so just being prepared is going to be key.
Yeah. Love it. Okay, cool. Michelle, thank you so much. So much practical advice here. Really, really helpful. As I said at the beginning of the call, spend 10 minutes a day applying for the fellowship, share it with all your friends, family, and loved one. Also join us for the session at lunchtime. We'd love to kind of answer all your questions there. Also, right now I'm going to run a breakout session. So come meet other people, come have a chat. We can kind of work through some of the things that Michelle covered off today. Amazing. Michelle, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It was great to see you.
You too. You too. Bye,
everybody.
Bye.